Hey, I'm Mia Friedman, and welcome to No Filter. The days before you give birth are pretty intense. You're nervous, uncomfortable, excited but also over it, grumpy, exhausted. That's how I experienced them anyway. But the days before Sally Obermeder became a mother, twice, have both been dramatically different to what most women go through. The first time, in 2011, after using IVF to become pregnant, as she waited to give birth, Sally was suddenly and unexpectedly diagnosed with breast cancer. It was aggressive. Her prognosis wasn't good. Can you even imagine the conflicting emotions of giving birth to a baby you have no faith you'll even live to see grow up?
In a way, you're killing yourself, but you don't know if it's actually going to work.
The next couple of years were unimaginable, as Sally and her husband struggled to care for their baby daughter while she literally fought for her life. As if being a new mother isn't hard enough when you're perfectly well, let alone battling cancer. I had so many questions about how Sally got through this time in her life, and her answers moved me so much. I could have talked to her for hours about that. But Sally's story was far from over because she wasn't done having kids yet. She wanted to give her daughter Annabelle a sibling. But would she risk her life to do it? Because that's what she was facing. That's when things got really interesting and really complicated. And while miracle is probably an overblown and overused word, I think it could be safely used to describe the past few years in Sally's life. And the days just prior to become a mother for the second time, just as unusual, just as intense. I think Sally Obermeder has the best smile of anyone in the world. I've always thought that. And then I met her, and it's like her whole body and her whole personality smiles with the warmth of 1,000 suns. She smells really good too. In fact, I briefly considered locking her in the podcast studio after this interview and asking her to be my sister. And you know, we have the same obstetrician, so given that shared intimate experience of this very lovely man who has been all up close and personal with our bits, we practically are sisters. Anyway, enjoy this riveting conversation with Sally Obermeder.
How is mat leave? You've taken 10 months.
10 months. It's heavenly. I don't even know. It's very hard to describe it. I think, I wanted the maternity leave for not only for Elyssa, not only for me, but also for Annabelle.
Absolutely.
Because she didn't really get it last time. And I felt like this was her chance to have it as well. It was kind of, thank you, darling. It was for both of us, or all of us, I should say. And for her, it has been great. So she has just started school, so it's like I can drop her off, I can pick her up, I get time with her. So, and the adjustment with her, with Elyssa, hasn't been easy. So it has been good.
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, it's someone once described it to me as if your husband goes, look, I really love you. I love you so much. Nothing's going to change, but I'm just going to bring another wife home.
Someone said it to me as well.
There's just going to be more people to love.
And they say, please be really nice to the first wife.
Yeah.
She loves you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Do you want to hold the first wife? do you want to play with her hair? Isn't she cute? Yeah, it's hard.
Very hard.
It's hard.
Very hard.
And I talk to lots of parents who go, oh, no, it's going really well. She loves the baby. And they do love the baby, but then they start acting out in other ways.
Totally.
And kicking you and behaving badly towards you.
And I get it. You know, like
totally.
for Annabelle, she's 5, so she's had the sole limelight and all of our love and attention for 5 years. And suddenly, and I think, extra conscious because she didn't see me pregnant, so it wasn't sort of this thing that she lived with every day that she saw happening. So even though she came with me to the States and she saw Rachel and we explained, Rachel's going to have the baby for mummy. And it's all very, as far as she's concerned, very obvious and very matter of fact. Like she's like, yeah, okay, that's all fine. But it wasn't something that she sort of grew accustomed to every day. So suddenly there was no one in the house and the next day there's a baby. Yeah. So it was a big adjustment. Big.
It must feel, taking the 10 months, I just keep thinking about the difference in your 2 days of giving birth. Neither of them were textbook.
No.
There must have been, when Elyssa was born, it must have triggered a lot of stuff about Annabelle's birth, did it?
Well, do you know what's interesting is Marcus and I had spoken a lot. We have a super open relationship. Marcus is, I think, quite he's very good at making me sit down and really think about stuff and really pushes my feelings button, because sometimes I can be very like, I'm doing things and everything's great, and he's like, no, I'm going to really ask you the hard questions because I want to make sure that if you're saying it's great, it really is great. So he had sort of said to me, listen, I have a feeling that when Elyssa is born, this is going to trigger a whole lot of stuff for you. And he said,
he sounds amazing.
He's I think, I don't know, he's very into his feelings.
Very evolved.
Very evolved.
Very high emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it's really big, and it's a good balance for me because I can keep myself very preoccupied with doing. It's a great place to hide when you do stuff. And he said, I think it's going to bring up a lot of things for you, and I wonder whether perhaps also the fact that you're going to see Rachel give birth and have the birth that you never got to have, is that going to trigger in you some kind of, are you going to have a little bit of postnatal depression? Let's just talk about what might happen so that we can kind of be prepared. So we'd spent a lot of time talking about it, and I was prepared for it. I thought, I wonder if I'm going to feel at that moment in the delivery room quite jealous of Rachel and quite jealous that she is giving birth. But what's weird is, and it actually surprised me because I had prepared myself for it, but it didn't happen. And I don't know if it's because I actually felt like I was having the birth experience with Rachel, and it's wacky, and I even just hear myself say it. It's so random. No. But she was obviously lying on the bed, and it was a very quick birth. The whole thing was really pretty much over within the hour. But so she was crying and I was crying.
In the hour it was over.
The woman is made to give babies.
Wow.
She's just
and it wasn't
heavenly.
A cesarean.
Natural. Just
out.
She's out. Out. And so we kind of were going through this experience together. I didn't feel like she was having the experience and I was watching. I felt very much in it with her. It was like, so at one point I started to shake. It was almost like the adrenaline was too much for me. And then she started to shake. So it was a very...
You were so connected at that time.
So connected. And and at no point did I feel like I'm not in this. And at no point did I feel like it wasn't my baby. It was weird. Maha, my sister, who was with me at the time, and she was in the delivery room with us, she said it was so incredible. She said, because you're watching Elyssa, but Rachel is watching you. She said, so you can see that for Rachel, the whole experience isn't about the baby. It's about you. It's that for her is really what it's about.
Because she was wanting to give you this gift.
And that's all it's about for her. It's amazing. So it's funny. So I didn't have that. I was fully prepared for it, and it just didn't quite happen.
And then when Elyssa was put in your arms, how was it different to when Annabelle was?
Do you know what's interesting? We've had a lot of nights talking about this of late, which is that it's almost like some of Annabelle's early time is a blur. It's such a blur, I don't quite remember it.
I can't imagine it not being a blur, because you were diagnosed the day before she was born.
The day before, and I think, we started, chemo 7 days later, and in that first 7 days, every day was like CAT scans and
And bad news after bad news.
It was terrible. And the whole kind of particularly the first 9 months was very much, this isn't going to end well. Kind of try to wrap your head around it, try to prepare, try to start kind of working out what you're going to do. So the experience is so different. I said to Marcus the other night, I said, I feel, not to take anything away from the absolute love that I have, obviously, for Annabelle, but this experience with Elyssa is so incredibly different that in a sense, I feel like it's my first.
Of course it is.
It's I kind of, sometimes I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed. I start crying because I'm just like, I can't believe how good this is.
Yeah.
Because, it just wasn't good last time.
Because you don't think you're about to die.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that birth and the prospect of death came together for you at that same time. I mean, giving birth is overwhelming enough. I can't imagine how you even got through that.
I don't know how either sometimes.
Yeah.
It's funny, I do scans. Last October I did my 5-year scan, so that was a big relief. But before that I was doing them every 3 months. And whenever they come around, I go through my weird period of I'm having a meltdown because I think I'm going to be diagnosed again. And it's...
How do you get through? When does that kick in? the anxiety, or is it always there?
It's. I think it's a low level that's always there, and I find it kicks in about 2 weeks before you're supposed to go for the scan, and it's because you get these phantom pains all the time, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's just like last time. And maybe if I've got that headache, it's because I've got a brain tumor. And like you start to,
I get
you
that,
run
and
away
I've
with
never
yourself.
had cancer.
Yes.
So I can't imagine. Are you constantly like monitoring your body, like constantly? What's that? Or is that
I've let that pass now, but definitely there have definitely been times I went through a stage where I had a terrible pain in my breast, and it was exactly the same as the pain I had the time before. And I rang my oncologist and I was like, it's the same pain. She said, well, hang on a second, you don't actually have any real breasts. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So she said, there's no that's your body just remembering its old pain.
So you had double mastectomy
and a reconstruction. So
it's just a memory.
It's a memory. And she said to me, amputees will have a pain in their leg, even though there's no leg there. And I was like, okay, well, that I understand now what's happening. But so I've sort of let that go.
So that was anxiety. That's
just anxiety. It's just you're so nervous. And I remember saying, maybe about a year and a bit ago, I said to Marcus, I can't do this again. I can't. I can't. And he said, well, you would probably if you had to.
Do you mean I can't go through if I was diagnosed? Can't.
I can't.
Yeah.
Because the further you get away from it, the more you're actually able to look at it, back on it, and go, what was that? That was horrendous. That was so horrendous. And I think when you're in it, you can't see it.
Because you just have to put one foot in front of the other, and you had a newborn to look after.
Every day is you're just trying to get through that day. Every day you're just trying to get through that day. And you're on a roller coaster. When you're in the medical system, you're just going from one thing to another,
Has having Elyssa been, in some ways, this early time with her, been a corrective experience, but have you also grieved for what you didn't have with Annabelle?
I think I grieved a lot when I was sick, a lot. Like I went to therapy twice a week.
It's not meant to be like this.
It's not meant to, and I was struggling to, I didn't know anyone who'd been through anything like this. So I had no one to kind of go, is this what's meant to happen? I don't know what's meant to happen. Is this normal that I feel like this? So again, Marcus, God love him, was like, you definitely need to go to therapy. You're going to need somewhere to, like, even though I'm here and your girlfriends are here and your sister's here and your mum is here, but you are going to need somewhere else to go and offload because it's just far too much in order to make sure that you are getting through it so that when it's over and you survive, hopefully, you're not still kind of carrying the burden of it. So, I grieved plenty. And yes, this experience has definitely been corrective, but the grief has passed, I think, to some extent. Yeah, to some extent. I definitely notice it, definitely, and I feel bad for Annabelle. I said to Marcus the other day, well, I don't think Annabelle was as smiley like this. Like, if I looked at her and played like this, I don't think she was as fun. And he was like, we weren't as fun. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It was us.
And Annabelle will never remember being that age.
No.
Ever.
No.
Marcus, I've heard him talk about conversations during that time after your diagnosis and when Annabelle was born and you were having treatment, when things weren't looking good, and at 3 o'clock in the morning you had to talk to him about, I might die. And how he had to let you say that. How important was it to be able to say that? And how much did you have to feel that everyone was saying, it's going to be okay, you're going to fight, you'll beat this?
It's funny. I think there's two camps. There's people who say, oh, just like, don't worry, like, it's fine. It's just like a cold. You'll just get through it. And then there's the other people who perhaps have a better understanding, who look at you and go, this might not end well, and we all understand it. And I think it's hard because you want to be positive.
Yeah.
And you have to be positive because you've got to basically get up every day and put your body through chemo, which is horrendous.
Yeah.
But you want to know it's for something. You want to know that it's actually, you're going to get a positive result at the end. Otherwise, why are you doing it? So it's really hard. It's like, in a way, you're killing yourself, but you don't know if it's actually going to work. In a way, there's some relief with saying it, I think.
I was going to ask, who else in your life let you say that and let you go there?
Probably my sister, I would say. And obviously the doctors, because they know it. They're telling you, they want you to say it because they're worried that if you don't accept the seriousness of it, you're not going to actually front up for everything that you have to do. And also, I think once you say it, it doesn't have this power over you. It's obviously still petrified. You're still shit scared for your life. But in a sense, it also lets you go, okay, now what can I do? Now that I've said it, now that I've like kind of let that demon out and we all know what we're facing, what else can I do? What else is there? What other treatment is there? What else can I voluntarily put my hand up for so that if it doesn't end well, I know, hand on my heart, I did all I could.
It's funny because having a child is when most women become aware of their mortality. Not in the way you had to be, but it's very common, for example, for women to become scared of flying after they've had children. Because you look at this vulnerable little person and you think, I have to be there to watch you grow up. The whole thing obviously has been so different this time around. And, did you feel after you were given the all clear, everyone didn't want you to take any more risks with your health in terms of having another child?
Yep.
And yet there was something in you that was really saying, but I'm not finished.
I wasn't finished. And I waited, maybe about a year and a bit, and I said to Marcus after the treatment had finished and I had the all clear, saying it might pass. This feeling it could go and I might feel like it's fine, but it wasn't. I wanted another baby. I wanted Annabelle to have a sibling. It was so strong. It was so like at times it would surprise me at how strong it was. And then I just was like, well, it's like everything. I always feel like as long as you try all that you can do, if it doesn't work, then hand on heart, you did what you could. Like I'm very big on that, because I think, well, at least if I've tried all the avenues that are possible and it's not meant to be, that's cool. But it's never like, well, you know what, I don't look back in 10 years with regret and go, you know what, I could have tried surrogacy or I could have tried adoption, but I just didn't do it. That way there's no regret.
And surrogacy was something that you thought about early?
Definitely very early because Annabelle was IVF and we still had 4 embryos left. So I was kind of like, well, at the time when we had Annabelle, before obviously everything unfolded, I presumed I would go back for those embryos and I would have them, So I think that kind of made everything in a sense easier. It was already kind of half the job was done. It was just like, okay, well now that I can't have them, who and how will we get this to happen?
And I was watching the Sunday Night story, which was beautiful, but they glossed over, they said, and 2 pregnancies failed and 1 miscarriage. And I was like, wait, what? What? So there were 4 embryos.
Yep.
And what happened? You hooked up with Rachel quite quickly. Was she your first?
She was the first surrogate we went ahead with. So basically the way the surrogacy program works is that it's probably, I kind of liken it maybe to a dating agency. They kind of say, look, we've got all these people in our books and they've all been, psych tested and they've kind of done everything. And I obviously needed somebody special because obviously surrogacy is legal in the States. You can pay a surrogate, which you cannot do here. So I was very conscious of that. And the agency were amazing and said,
How did you know which agency to go with?
Someone who I know from here gave me a great recommendation. They said, listen to me, I know somebody in the States who's done this and they use this agency. For anyone who wants to know, it's called Growing Generations. They're amazing and they can help. So I rang and I said, listen, I'm in a unique situation. I need somebody who maybe might want to do this for free. And they said, look, we know someone who we think could work. And
why for free? Because you couldn't afford.
Because you cannot pay a surrogate. It is illegal to pay a surrogate.
But it's in another country.
Doesn't matter. You can pay her medical expenses. You can pay her out-of-pocket expenses. You can pay for obviously the doctor and the lawyers and all that kind of stuff, which is really
even though it's legal in another country.
Yep.
Because it's not legal here.
Yes.
That's extraordinary.
To me, what's most infuriating is that when people say, oh, I don't think the surrogate should get paid. And it's like, really? Well, why don't you hit up the doctor and ask him if he shouldn't get paid? Or the lawyer or the fertility specialist or the embryologist.
Exactly.
Everyone's getting paid. And let me tell you, the amount that the surrogate gets is so small compared to what everyone else is getting. And the thing is they do all the work. I mean,
of course they do, and bear all the risk.
And it's their whole family. I was saying to Rachel early on, like this isn't just you who's put your life on hold to give us this baby. It's your whole family. She's 3 daughters, and they were saying, Mummy, when can we kind of go to Disneyland? She was like, well, we kind of have to finish this process with Sally and her family first. And it's like 2 years. 2 years. Their life's on hold while Mummy does this thing.
And she did it altruistically.
She did. and she's amazing. I think for her, because
the connection between you looks incredible.
She's so special. She's a neonatal nurse, right? So she's around kids all day, right? She just loves it. She's got 3 of her own girls. She's been a surrogate for somebody once before. She said, I want to do it one more time, but for the right reasons, you know, for something special. So once we met, we were just like, it's like love at first sight. I was just like, we're on the same page. And I think the fact that her 3 girls are similar age to Annabelle and that they were like best friends just kind of sealed the deal.
So you had 4 embryos to work with?
Yep.
And what happened to them?
The first one took straight away. It was the first go, and it worked. And it was, we were all beside ourselves because we'd just come back from the States. We'd all just met for the first time. We all loved each other. We had the embryo implanted into Rachel. Got back, and the doctor rang and said it's worked. And we were all just like, this is the dream, right?
Yeah, it's meant to be.
And everything was fine. Rachel was having a great pregnancy. And then at the 11-week scan, we were on a FaceTime call all together. So my sister and I and Annabelle were in this like kind of noisy Bondi cafe, and because the time difference, you know, and then Rachel's there at the doctor's with the 3 girls. And everything's fine. The doctor's in the room, hello, and he's like, yeah, it's great. And Rachel's coming along nicely. And then there's just kind of silence, and then she starts bawling her eyes out. Ooh. And we're in this cafe, and I can't hear properly. And I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. What's going on? And then he says, I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat. And I, of course, just start bawling my eyes out. And it was just, it was really shit. It was really shit. I think it's, you know, I remember Georgie Gardner saying once, and it was before this, but it really struck me. She said, you know, when people have a miscarriage, everyone says, how many weeks? And then they say, oh, only 5, or oh, only 7, or only 10, or whatever. And it really hit a nerve, because it was something that I used to say to people, as though somehow it's less painful the earlier it is. Like, it's such an ignorant, ridiculous thing to say. And I think I saw her afterwards, and I said, I'm so glad you said that. I said, because I think when you don't know what to say, you say ridiculous things. And it's something that I'd said. And I really kind of then, when we had the miscarriage, I was like, oh, God, I want to go back in time to anyone who I've ever said that to and take it back, because it was so painful, you know. And I felt particularly bad for Rachel. You know, I felt like she had to go in and have a D&C, and she, you know, I felt like I was...
Physicality of it. Have you had a miscarriage before?
No.
Yeah, it's very physical, because your body still thinks you're pregnant, and it's just awful.
See,
and those being in those ultrasound rooms when it goes quiet, it's just it's awful,
sickening.
Yeah, it's really awful.
I felt bad.
It happened again.
Well, the next 2 didn't take.
Okay.
The next 2 didn't take. So 1 miscarriage, 2 didn't take, and then this was the last one, and it took.
No pressure. How had you talked about? I'm sure Marcus made you talk about what would happen if this one doesn't take.
He's like, if this doesn't take, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
And I said, I actually don't know. I said, but I know enough about myself that I probably will keep going.
I think your sister would have donated her eggs.
Well, I've
already worked it out. I've already jumped ahead.
A lot of people said, why didn't your sister just have the... Yeah, should we call her? A lot of people said, why didn't your sister have the baby for you?
No pressure.
I know. People are funny, the things they ask you. And look, I understand. 2 things. One, normally to be a surrogate for someone, you should have had your own baby.
She hasn't?
She hasn't had her own children. And for me, that was important. It's like, I don't want your first experience to be having my child. That's not what I want for you. You know, I want you to have your own baby. That's what's important, you know.
Did you talk about her eggs?
We actually didn't.
Yeah.
We actually didn't. I think... Would I have done that? Probably, maybe. Or I might have done a donor egg.
Yeah.
I think it's funny how as you go further along the process, you become, like in the beginning, you're like, oh, I'll never do IVF and I'll never do surrogacy, I'll never do... And then as you start each thing, you're like, oh, you know what? I might just abduct a kid from the bus stop and take him, you know? Like you become like, oh, I just...
Because it's the urge to mother.
I just want a mother.
It just doesn't actually matter.
No.
The genetic material
Absolutely.
isn't as important.
Absolutely. And you realise, I think also as you get older, like these are like almost like kind of ridiculous things, ideas you have when you're 20 and you're like, oh no, that's not what I would ever do. And it's like, no, you will. That is what you'll do.
Well, if you want it
anything,
enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you lived the pregnancy long distance.
Yeah. Weird.
And then I feel like I, through your Instagram over Christmas, lived the birth.
I'm so
and
sorry.
it looked lovely. Oh, don't be silly. It was the most delightful thing. I felt that I was excitedly waiting for the birth of your child. And I felt like I was there and I was worried, where's Marcus? But I saw that you had your sister with you and Annabelle.
Yes.
It wasn't quite as easy as it seemed, was it?
No.
Like, was it a difficult time? Because you were there for a while.
Oh, my gosh. So Rachel, all her pregnancies have come 2 weeks early. So she said, this one will be 2 weeks early. They all are. This is, and I was like, great. So I kind of had it mapped out sort of semi, correctly. And, of course, the baby didn't come 2 weeks early. It came around the due date. So that's all fine, I think, when it's just you or just you and your partner or whatever. But having a 5-year-old trapped in a hotel, and we were in Milwaukee, and it was minus 20.
Oh my God.
It was minus 20. So, like, 5-year-olds in hotels, how much TV can they watch? She was going mental, mental. Like, so poor thing. So one day we're like, we'll go to the park. Don't worry, we'll go to the park. And got outside and she's like, my face is burning. And I was like, I know, because it's minus 20 and no one else is outside except us weirdos. So it was tough. And I think
nervous that things would work out well.
Really, really nervous, and we wanted to get home and you've got to kind of organise passports and birth certificates and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole lot of legal things that happened with surrogacy. And so it was a kind of a long, boring trip, really, to be honest. But we were there for a reason, But it was hard. It was hard for Annabelle to be away from Marcus for all that time. He couldn't come because of his work. His work happens. December basically it happens in June and December. It's critical. And so we just had to kind of suck it up and do it.
I'm so envious of your relationship with your sister. You're in business together. You have Swish, which is so fabulous. All the clothes that you guys sell, and your smoothie business and the book that you wrote together. And now you're doing, which is the most genius idea, you're selling chopped up smoothie ingredients, snap frozen, which is how I make my smoothies. Yeah. I do a bulk chop up, put it in the freezer in little bags.
There you go.
And now I can just buy it.
There you go. Because that was the thing.
So
we
clever.
were so aware. We've been doing smoothies for such a long time.
Yeah.
And this one day I just was like, I want someone to do it for me. I love the end result, but I get it. The prep is a punish, or you'll go to make a smoothie and you've got the kale but you don't have bananas and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating, And if you miss your prep day, that's it.
Yeah.
Like you just, you kind of just...
And you can't make it day by day. It's just...
You can't. You need
takes too long.
You need to buy it all, wash it, chop it, freeze it. That's just the only way it's going to happen. So then I was like, well, hang on a minute. Why don't I just make that? And then imagine if you could buy it and all you had to do was add the liquid. It was like... So it was just like, oh my God, I must do this. I must do this.
So clever.
So we've been working on it for a couple of years now. So it's for us, so exciting to see it finally on the shelf and to know that people understand it's healthy, it's tasty, it's easy. There's nothing crap in it. It's just vegetables, it's fruit, it's some herbs. It's like if you're having mint or whatever. It's all natural. That was a big thing for us, that it was just blend and go. That's what we wanted. We wanted people to have all the benefits of having the smoothie, but without any of the hassle, and vegetables. That's the thing. It's not fruit in a bag. There's places where you can get a fruit in a bag, but this is vegetables because that's the key.
It's the vegetables that's the key,
That's
isn't
right.
it?
No
All
one's
the
struggling
greens.
to eat fruit. It's greens. It's
so
greens,
true.
That's
why I started eating smoothies, because I
Right.
just find greens so boring.
They
But
are.
if you make them into a smoothie...
Suddenly it's all good,
Yeah.
right? It's broccoli, it's kale. That's what you need. It's spinach, so that's what we've got in there. And that's what makes, for me and for Maha, I think that's what makes the product so special. It's not just like we haven't just shoved mango and banana in a bag together.
You're someone who's clearly takes a lot of joy in clothes and makeup and beauty and all of those things. I feel the same way. Cancer ravaged you and chemo ravaged you.
Totally.
I remember you shared quite a lot of photos during that time. Tell me about that, about that part of your joy being taken away. How did you deal with that?
It's in the beginning, so... and I say this sometimes when I speak. I say, so Fran, my oncologist, hated me, right? Because all my key questions were around when can I go back to work and how long will I lose my hair? And when you say I'll lose it, like how much? And what about my eyelashes? Like all questions around. So she was very frustrated because she was trying to say to me like, there's something very serious happening here. You might not survive. And I'm somehow, it was almost as if couldn't bear to hear that. So then I focused on the kind of the external. Anyway, she said to me, listen, you can do this cold cap treatment that we have, which is basically where they put this freezer helmet on your head in an attempt to kind of freeze the hair follicles so that your hair won't fall out. She said it works for some people, doesn't work for others. I was like, I'll do it. I will do it. Anything to protect my hair. Anyway, so I did it. And it
Was it painful?
It was so painful. And you're having chemo at the same time. And chemo, when it goes in, there's different kinds of chemo, right? So
yeah, and not everyone loses their hair with chemo.
Not everyone loses their hair because it depends on the concoction of drugs. It's a cocktail, right? And so it's different for everyone. It depends on what your cancer is, what type it is, how severe it is, all that kind of stuff. So because I had a triple negative cancer, meaning it's a non-hormone cancer.
Is that good or bad?
Bad.
Why?
It's bad because it's not as common, so they don't have as much research on it. So she said to me 5 years ago, basically 85% of people who got a triple negative cancer died because they just hadn't, it's not as common, so they don't have as much funding to do research on it. And it doesn't respond to hormone blocking treatment because it's negative to all the hormones. So that's the part that makes that kind of cancer a little bit tricky. So anyway, I'm doing the chemo, and the chemo they give you for that is incredibly painful when it goes in. It's so painful.
Really?
Yeah, it feels like you've got a tiny, tiny straw and then someone is shoving like cement through the straw and they're just banging it through, and it's 6 hours and they're just shoving it in the whole time. So it's so painful. And so I'm doing that at the same time as having this ice pack thing on my head. It was horrendous. But I was like, if it works, I don't care. At least it's one kind of, I don't know, it's a funny thing about hair loss that's attached to shame, and it's a really weird thing. So I'll explain. So anyway, it didn't work. She said to me, you'll know in 2 weeks and 3 days, exactly to the day, if it's worked, your hair will still be there. If not, you'll wake up and there's literally clumps. So I wake up and I'm like, okay, everything sort of looks intact. It all looks intact. I walk to the kitchen and literally as I'm walking, it's just falling. It's just dropping like leaves. And I went into the bathroom and I touched it, and it was just clumps just falling. And I bawled my eyes out. But then I sort of had this, this realization. I just thought, you know what? For whatever reason, this experience is meant to be the full experience. Like, I'm not getting the kind of the modified version of cancer.
I'm not doing halfway cancer.
I'm not. There's no special. There's no special treatment for you.
There's no celebrity cancer.
There's no celebrity cancer. We don't have a special one for you. You're going to get all of it. And then it was almost like I just was like, okay, and I gave in. And I gave into it. Surrendered totally. But that doesn't make it easy. It's funny, you surrender and you're like, okay, that's fine, I'm going to get my hair cut. But that moment, my girlfriend Belinda Jeffrey, who's a hairdresser, took me and we went and we shaved it. And it was awful. It was such an awful experience because the thing that happens is then you're very publicly sick. So when you have cancer and you're just out in the street and you forget for a minute that you're sick, but someone looks at you with that look of deep pity, and then you remember, and then you're like, oh, this is so bad. This is there's no escape. I think that's the thing that having no hair gives you no escape from ever sort of. You're always remembering that you're sick. You always remember.
It's like it strips your armour away.
Totally. And it's so public. And I don't know, you feel... I definitely felt... More so, I guess, when I had the mastectomy, I definitely felt ashamed. I felt like I somehow was not worthy of being in the human race. It was weird. It was such a weird feeling. It really took me by surprise. I walked around, kind of with my shoulders hunched, kind of covering my chest, desperately trying not to make eye contact with anyone because I felt like somehow I was less of a person. And then I remember saying to myself, like, what is wrong with you? Like, if you saw somebody in a wheelchair, or if you saw an amputee, if you saw somebody who had something wrong with them, would you think they were less of a person? I was like, well, no. And it's like, well, then why do you feel this way about yourself? And I was like, I don't know why. I felt some kind of, I think because slowly everything gets stripped away. It's the hair, then it's the eyebrows, then it's the eyelashes, then my fingernails all fell off. And then they take your breasts away, and then it's like you start to feel like you become kind of a shell. I don't know, towards the end it just gets really hard, but then that's where you have to really start to dig deep and you go, well, hang on a minute, I'm still here and I'm still fighting, it's not over, and there's no shame in being sick. I remember having this talk with myself saying, well, hang on, you haven't done anything wrong. You haven't killed anyone. You haven't done, this is not your fault. You don't need to feel bad about this. Why do you feel bad? Then I was like, yeah, that's weird. Why do I feel as if I've done something wrong? I haven't done anything wrong.
It's telegraphing to the world something very private and intimate about you, though, isn't it? I suppose, when you're pregnant towards the end, you can feel, I don't want to go out in public because I don't want to have another conversation. That's right. I imagine that when you look very frail and you've got no hair, it's like, oh, she's got cancer.
Totally. And then you're holding a newborn and everyone looks at you like...
with pity.
Such deep pity. You can see them, they look from the baby to you, and then it's like, oh. And then
that's not good.
That's not good, yeah. And it's not good. But you need to go get your groceries and have a break from. I guess there's a real comfort when I was sick in the mundane. There's great joy in laundry and groceries because it's your old life. It just gives you something to hold on to. So then when everyone's looking at you, and not that they're being mean, it's like, God, if you can't, when you see that, of course you feel sadness, But then it's like, oh, man, yeah, that's right. I remember now. I am sick. Mm.
So did you get your boobs reconstructed during the mastectomy?
I had them because I was so weak after chemo. They would only let me do the mastectomy on the right side, the one with the tumour first. And then I had to go do radiation. Then I came back, did the mastectomy on the other side, and then did the reconstruction.
And implant? Did you have to choose what size?
No, so I don't have implants. So the reason I don't have implants is because they were worried that if the cancer came back and I needed to go back into treatment, they didn't want my body to reject the implants and there to be any reason for me to need more surgery in case I had to have chemo, because chemo and surgery don't go well together.
Don't they?
So then the only other option for me was they have this thing, it's called a tram flap, and what they do is they take all the tissue from your stomach and, in my case, some from my back, and they use it to build your breasts. So they basically make your breasts, out of real tissue. And it's a 17-hour operation, and they actually, every single nerve is reattached. So
17-hour operation.
I was in hospital 10 days after.
At what point on your cancer journey was this?
This is after chemo, after radiation, after the first mastectomy. This is kind of towards the end. So this is...
How many months in?
Maybe around 11 and a half months.
So you had no breasts for that whole time?
I had, so for 6 months I had one breast.
That must have been fun.
It was awful.
Oh, my God, Sal, that must have been so strange. But with them, I've never heard of this before, reconstructing it. Now, is that because you had excess fat because you'd been pregnant?
No.
Or they can do it for anyone?
They can do it for anyone. Yeah.
And why don't more people do it? Because it takes 17 hours.
It's a big operation. I think it's, I think people think at that point, well, I'll have an implant. What's the difference?
Yeah.
I've been through so much. Why not just have it? I wasn't allowed,
wasn't an option for you, so you needed something different.
And so I was like, well, I'm happy to have that. But it's interesting because they shrink as you lose weight. They grow like real boobs as you put on weight,
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing, Do
they have nipples?
No, that's a separate operation.
Did you have that as well?
Yeah, so they actually take that, they're not obviously real nipples. There's no kind of sensation there. No. But they take them, they take skin, this time from another spot in my back. So my body's got scars everywhere.
Wow, you're a patchwork quilt.
Yeah, totally. And they take that and then they make nipples. Yeah. But what's also interesting is with this, because they take all that tissue from your stomach, they then move your belly button because they've obviously taken your real belly button away.
Where is it now?
So they've moved it. It's sort of still where it is, but it's not the original one.
Now it's on my shoulder.
That's right. I'm so clever.
So they have to recreate a new belly button.
They make a new belly button. It's honestly, doctors are amazing. They are.
So you probably couldn't have become pregnant. Or you could have carried a baby.
I have, because of this tram flap, they put this sort of mesh panel in your stomach because they've moved everything around. Yeah. And they put this mesh panel in there to kind of hold everything in place. So Look, because I asked and I said, look, you could. It has happened. They can kind of, hopefully if you don't get too big, the panel will stretch with you, or they could open you up, take the panel out, let you have the baby, then put the panel back in after. There's options, but, you know, because of the kind of cancer I had, it was like, you know
it
what?
was not a good option.
This is not a good option.
Did you have to decide what size your boobs were going to be?
Yeah, Megan, who's a surgeon, she's so funny. I was like, I'm going to lose weight because obviously I was still so overweight from chemo. I'd put on so much weight with the chemo. I was like, I'm going to lose weight, so just give me a
make you put on weight?
The one I did, yes.
Because you get swollen.
You're so sick. I was eating all the time, like constantly. Like I was just, because you've got this taste in your mouth, it's basically like petrol. It's just like, and there's nothing that will get rid of it. So you're constantly trying to
put food in your mouth.
Like, let me try a coffee, let me try an orange, let me eat an apple, let me have a burger, I want chips, give me popcorn. And then you're fighting this nausea. And so you're just like, you're not even hungry. You're so full, but you're just shoving stuff in there, you know, in an attempt to feel better. Plus, I'm an emotional eater. So there's an extra layer of me just like trying to eat my feelings, you know. So I piled on the weight. And so I was saying, I'm going to lose weight. So I just give me a B. And she was like, I will not give you a B. You'll have a nice big D. And I was like, no, I don't want a D. She's like, you'll get what I give you. I was like, oh, she's hilarious.
She's very strict.
She's very strict. And then she came out and she's like, okay, I couldn't get enough for a D, but I gave you 2 C's. I was like, okay, good, that's fine, thank you.
And how do you physically take care of a baby? Because it's exhausting having a baby, and I can't imagine what it's like having chemo and fighting cancer. How do you do those 2 things at once?
Not well. Not well is the answer.
Well, that's disappointing. I'm judging you right now.
Not
you should have tried harder.
I'm not well. I remember when I took Annabelle to radiation, it was like every day for 6 weeks, and I remember saying to Marcus, I wonder if she thinks this is the park. Like, I don't know. Like, she has no sense, obviously, of where we are, but like, it's the only place that she's gone every day. I wonder if she thinks this is like where all the other kids are. Like, this is the park and that's the sun. But it's actually a fluorescent light inside a hospital. You know, like, it was sort of, I don't know, it's weird.
That was her normal.
That's her normal. You know, she didn't know any different. I mean, I was really lucky. Obviously, my sister is around. My mum and dad were amazing. Marcus is amazing. So there's no question. I've got an incredible girlfriend. So I was blessed with a lot of support. We also got some support. So I didn't take Annabelle with me to chemo because it's just, I think it was just too full on to take a newborn into a scenario like that. So not that I think she would have known, but, you know, it was just a lot.
But you also had to, the whole thing about being a mother is that you're constantly focusing on someone else and taking care of them. And I imagine that you would have been quite torn because to deal with all your treatment, you had to be inward focusing.
Well, it's funny because so with the chemo, I would go to it and then you start to feel sick almost immediately. So it's driving home, start to feel so sick. And the next kind of 24 hours, it's like you may as well be dead. It's horrendous. You're so, so sick. And then after that, it's for the next kind of 7 or 8 days, you're sick, but it comes in waves. And so you end up, I remember this one night, I crawled, like I could hear Annabelle crying in her room, and I didn't have the energy for it, but I was like, I don't know, there's something about a mother's love, right? Like, it doesn't matter how sick you are, you just don't become as inward maybe as you could have been if you didn't have children, you know? I remember I crawled to her room and I was just like, oh, I feel so bad. And at times I remember saying to Marcus, you know, in a way, I wish that I hadn't had her, because I could be like, listen, I'm going to be lying in bed for the next month just so I can recover.
Yeah.
And what other kind of treatment can I do that I could just spend all day, every day, just doing everything I could to recover. But that doesn't happen with a baby. But also it's funny because also I wouldn't take it back too, because having the baby gives you that impetus to really fight. It's like, well, I cannot leave you. I do not want to leave you. I will do everything I can. So, look, it's good and bad, right?
Mm. Yeah, my God. The community service part of this, I want to ask if there were any symptoms you missed, any things that you wished you'd have known before your diagnosis?
Definitely. So I was really lucky that the person really who picked up my diagnosis was my obstetrician.
Did you have big boobs?
No. I was pregnant, so they were lumpy. So
sore.
And so I kind of just was like, oh, well, that's probably normal.
Yeah.
There was a lump. You could feel it. It was massive.
Where was it?
It was on the right side, kind of about maybe, let's see, do you do the breast as a clock? So maybe like at 10 o'clock?
Yeah. Okay.
And big. But being pregnant, I was like, oh, well, I'm pregnant. It's probably normal. But it was painful. And so there's this myth that cancer isn't painful. So if
That's
you've
what
got
I've heard.
Yeah, that is a lie. It was so painful. It was super, super painful, which is why I then was like, oh, maybe it's like an early mastitis or something.
Yeah,
something.
a blocked milk duct.
Yeah, my body's getting ready. I'm weeks away. So that's one thing I definitely would say. That is a myth. Don't believe that. Also the myth that if you're, under 40 or under 30, stuff about age and
How old
cancer.
were you?
37. That is not true. If you feel anything, raise it with someone. And that's the other thing I then decided for myself. Oh no, because I'm pregnant and because I've no family history, it was not on my radar at all.
I also love how you've said you forgot to mention it
Yeah.
in your appointments. You and I are so different, Sal. I'm like, I have imaginary things that I mention, whereas you like have an actual thing, and it's like, oh yeah, that.
Don't worry, I'm like,
sure
it's so
it's fine.
And because I have no family history.
So where did you go from there? Because they always say when you go for mammograms and stuff, if you are pregnant, you can't do this. So I guess, did they just...
They booked me in the next morning, and when you really have no idea. So I could hear the woman who works for Stephen got on the phone, to the breast clinic saying, we need to get her in tomorrow. And I was thinking, oh, they're so nice here. They're so lovely. Like an idiot, like a complete idiot.
Yeah,
and the woman on the phone
sweet?
saying, oh, we've got no spots for 2 weeks. And she's like, tomorrow, you get her in tomorrow. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. They're so kind.
The service here is great.
Yes. Worth every cent, the service here. And of course, now I understand, right? So I went down there. I did have a mammogram. They gave me a mammogram.
Yeah.
A biopsy, another biopsy. I was there all day. Everyone who was there at 9 o'clock had long gone, and I was still there at 4.
When did it start dawning on you? Maybe this isn't great.
Slightly, maybe it's not great at 4, and I started to get teary.
Stop it.
Yeah, an idiot. Honestly, and then she said, do you want us to get Marcus down here? And I thought, God, you're lovely. That would be great. Honestly, Marcus said to me, are you joking? Like, you didn't understand. Like,
wow, I'm envious of your positivity.
Yeah, no, that's called it.
And your optimism.
Stupidity. Look, put it this way, I wouldn't be stupid like that again. But it was just. Yeah. I'd been to that clinic once before for a for a cyst that they drained. So I was like.
Things happen.
It's
It'll
be fine. I was totally in a bubble.
Because you had that unshakable faith that everything was going to be okay.
It's fine. It's going to be fine.
Remember that? Remember when you had unshakable faith?
Yeah.
That everything would be okay?
Long gone. Long gone.
Has it changed you? Have you
Totally.
become less optimistic in that way? I mean, you're so bright and bubbly and positive with that gorgeous smile.
I'm a very happy person. I'm a very grateful person. I think that's just generally been my thing. But I'm obviously more grateful now having survived. I get it. But I think I'm also a lot more accepting that, the end will come at some point. I'm very fortunate it wasn't then. But that doesn't mean you've just skipped it forever. Like at some point that is going to happen and you don't know when it is. So I don't know. Is it 5 years from now? Is it 10 years from now? Will I make it to 80? Who knows? Well, I don't know. So I'm very conscious of, just enjoy what I have, and I think I'm big on that. I'm big on I thought I was going to die and I didn't think I'd have all the experiences I've had. So they're all already upside.
And Annabelle, how's she going with Elyssa?
Look, it's so funny. I was joking the other day saying to someone, so in the first week, it was great, right? She was like, oh, she's so cute. We're still away. And then she said to Maha, oh yeah, because then it happened, right? She said to Maha, Auntie Maha, I really miss the good old days. And then Maha's like, when were they? And she's like, last week, before Elyssa came along. I was like, oh boy, this is no good. So it was pretty rocky. And then we got home to Marcus, and then obviously she's been missing her dad for ages. And so then
that would have been good.
It was so good. So that was all great for about 24 hours. Then of course, as soon as he was paying Elyssa any attention, she drew this picture of a love heart and she said, Daddy, see this? This is me in the love heart and this is you in my heart. I just love it. And he was like, oh, and then she went, and not anymore, and did a big red cross through it. I'm not happy. I was like, oh boy, this is no good.
I love how articulate she is about her feelings.
This is the problem.
Very good.
Because she's...
I blame Marcus.
I said it's good that she can express how she feels. I was like, it'd be good if she didn't express them so well because it's gut-wrenching. We went to Larry Emder's house. It was so funny. And she said, we went to leave and she said, you don't need me anymore. You've got Elyssa now. I think I'll just stay here with Sylvie. I was like, oh, God.
She's fabulous.
Oh, my. She's so dramatic. Behind her back, we call her Meryl for Meryl Streep because she's so, like, intense and, like, she turns it on. I was like...
sensational.
It's like, rightio, Meryl.
She's so great. But it's great that she's at school this year because she's off having her life. And you also get your days to be completely besotted and in love without feeling torn.
Totally. Without feeling like I have to edit, what I'm saying or, anything like that.
You're the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. I've never felt this happy. Right. Except, of course.
Exactly. At 3:05, I'm like, I don't know you anymore, okay? We'll pick up where we left off at 8 p.m. once Annabelle's gone to bed. It's hard.
Well, I'm off to jump on Swish. What does the rest of the day hold for you?
I'm actually off to go see my old friends at the Daily Edition today. I'm taking Elyssa in for a little cuddle with Tommy Williams. Yeah, I know.
Beautiful. And he's a dad too now.
He's a dad of 2. He's surrounded by girls. I love it.
Oh, he's got 2 daughters as well.
He's got 2 daughters. And all these cats are girls. And,
all that estrogen. It's punishment for something that he did in his former life.
Exactly. Tommy, I love it.
Hey, lots of love.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
And your beautiful face just makes me smile. You're lit from within.
Thank you. Oh, my God, that's lovely.
No, you actually are.
Thank you.
You actually are in person as well as in your beautiful photos.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Love you.
Love you.
You can buy Sally's books from iBooks at apple.co/mamamia, which is where you can also buy my new book, Work-Strife Balance. Please do. Plus, you can also subscribe to all our other shows in one place. But even better than that is downloading the Mamamia podcast app because we often put things there first. You can find all of Sally's super green smoothie packs in the frozen section of Coles and Woolies. She sent some into the office after our interview and, oh my God, quite life-changing. If you want to suggest a guest or just ask me a question or donate some eggs to someone who might need them, call the pod phone on 02 8999 9386 or flick me an email at podcasts@mamamia.com.au. Today's show was produced by Eliza Ratliff for the Mamamia Women's Network. The executive producer of podcasts is Monique Bowley and the head of entertainment is Holly Wainwright.